Hey everyone, ready for chapter 18? Oh, I'm sorry, chapter 17. The X-ray power of the mind. So let me find the page. Okay. The X-ray power of the mind. There are many things that the human mind can do, and all of them are remarkable when viewed from the highest pinnacle of consciousness. But one of the greatest and most wonderful is the power of mind to see through things. That is, to cause the rays of its insight and discernment to pass through the problems of life, just as the X-ray passes through opaque and tangible substances. This power is latent in every mind and is active to a considerable degree in many minds, and on account of the extreme value of this power, its development should be promoted in every possible manner. It's like our great teacher always said, do not judge things by appearances, but look to the cause of that appearance as to why it had happened. Most people you see judge somebody by the clothes that they wear, they judge somebody by the car that they're driving, that the business they're in, but none of that really matters. Yeah, it's great to have those things, and it's all possessions of the material world, but real prosperity, it comes from within. It comes from character, it comes from virtues, morals, it comes from just you as a person, because we went over in this whole book, everything you have on the outside is only a reflection of who you are on the inside. The way other people see you, the way other people treat you, the way other people react towards you is a reflection of who you are, and it is also a reflection of who they are as well. Because you could be such a noble character, you could be such a great person, and if somebody else isn't in that state of mind of positivity, they're only going to perceive you in a negative way, and then they're going to act that way towards you. It really has nothing to do with you. Well, it kind of does. It's half and half, because it takes two to make a situation. Okay? When this power is highly developed, practically all mistakes can be avoided. The right thing can be done at the right time, and every opportunity can be taken advantage of when the psychological moment is at hand. And in addition, that finer perception of life will be gained through which consciousness may expand into larger and larger fields, until the mind goes beyond all limitations and lives in the spirit of the universal. We are all surrounded by possibilities that can never be measured, possibilities that, if employed even in a limited degree, would make life many times as rich and beautiful as it is now. The average person, however, does not see these many larger and greater ways of adding to the value of worth of existence. In other words, he cannot see through the circumstances of his life and thus take possession of the more substantial elements of growth, attainment, and realization. And reading books like this, I know I've been saying it in other videos, is what is going to help you reach that point. Meditating is what is going to help you reach that point. For those of you who don't know what meditation is when you sit erect and you gain complete mastery and control over the physical body. Being able to sit there for long periods of time. And when you're able to do that, then you move on to moving into getting control of your own mind, controlling your own thoughts. And when you're in that meditation position, you could really feel the heaviness of sitting there for such a long time, and you're training your mind to keep staying in that position. You're literally conquering yourself, and meditation is the key when it comes to aligning your spirit, your mind, and your body together. Okay? Therefore, life with him continues to remain very ordinary matter. Okay, let me read that sentence again. In other words, he cannot see through the circumstances of his life and thus take possession of the more substantial elements of growth, attainment, and realization. Therefore, life with him continues to remain a very ordinary matter. He may know that there are better things in store, and that there is something just beyond his present conception of life that could change his life completely if he could only lay hold upon it. Still, here is where he fails. He is in the dark. He cannot see how to proceed in gaining those greater and better things that life must contain. There is something in the way of his vision, a cloud, a veil, or an obstacle of some kind that hides the path to better things. And he cannot see through the obstacle. For this reason he remains where he is, wondering why he has not the power to reach what he is absolutely certain could be reached. Millions of minds complain, if we could only have things cleared up. This is the problem everywhere. Therefore, if they could all see their way clear, what might they not actually accomplish both for themselves and for others? But as a rule, they do not see their way clear. Occasional glimpses of light appear when the real path to the all good things seems to reveal itself. But before they are ready to take this path, another cloud comes in the way, and they have no idea what to do next. This is the experience of the average person along these lines. And there seems to be no hope for the average person of ever passing from the lesser to the greater. The reason seems to be that when everything looks bright and the way is clear for greater results, desirable changes, more happiness, and a larger life, something invariably happens to confuse things again, and the way to pastures green has for the time being been closed up once more. However, there is a way out of all sorts of conditions, and everybody can find this way. Though it is a fact well to remember that every individual must always see this way for himself. To proceed, everybody must develop the power to see through things. In fact, see through all things, or in other words, learn to use the X-ray of what may be termed superior degrees of intelligence. Every mind has this X-ray, this higher power to penetrate to see through the difficult and the confused. And there is no condition, no circumstance, no obstacle, no mystery through which this ray cannot penetrate. And it starts with securing the power and control over your mind. Because that's where the battle is. The battle is in your mind. You know, when you're say, let's say swimming, for example, because I did swimming in high school. You know, it's a big body thing, you know, being able to swim, you know, you have to have strong lungs, you have to have that physical aspect of you as well. But then there is also that part of you that your mind pushes you to go even further. You know, you can't breathe anymore. You know, it sucks, and you're dying for some air, but you're just telling yourself, like, no, I can do this. I can make it happen. You know, you do your flip turns, you push off the edge, you do your dolphin kicks, and you're still dying for air. But then you're not even really paying attention to all that anymore, because in your mind, you know you can do it, and you're making that conscious decision that you're going to make it happen regardless of what your body is telling you. And your body will respond to that by pushing itself through that degree of pain. And like I had said, meditation is key when it comes to securing control over your mind. Because when you're the mind that is in control, you could see literally the minds around you and where they are at. Literally. Don't just take my word for it. Put it into practice. Okay. Therefore, when we employ this X-ray of the mind, we clear up everything. We see exactly where we are going, where we ought to go and where we should not go, so that to live constantly in the light of these finer grades of intelligence is to live in the cleared up atmosphere perpetually, no matter where our sphere of activity may be. That those minds who live in the lower atmosphere of thought cannot see clearly where they are going is quite natural, because in the first place, these lower atmospheres, hold on, let me read that again. That those minds who live in the lower atmosphere of thought. Now, I don't know if you've been with me during the Master Key system, but thought as spirit is the only power that spirit possesses. It is a book by Charles F. Handel. It has been rumored that Bill Gates got his hands on this book, and after he read it, that's what caused him to drop out of Harvard. And you know how Harvard is supposedly the best college ever. You know, it's definitely up there, and this guy literally dropped out of this school and followed his dream to be, you know, for Microsoft. And look where Microsoft is now. And this is the book right here, The Master Key System. I strongly recommend you buy yourself your own copy. It's amazing. It's great. But okay, with this lower power of thought, if you there are realms of thinking. You could think on the negative side, which he says in here, he refers to as the inferior way of thinking because you're thinking lowly. Then there's the superior way of thinking, which is the higher realms of thinking, because thought is the only power as spirit possesses, and it is creative. And your mind is a mental factory. Zig Ziglar says it perfectly. And whatever thoughts you are thinking, you're pouring into this mental factory, and that is what you're creating and building your mental habits to be. That is how your mind starts to work on its own, and your body will invariably follow what the mind is doing. And also, if you're impressed by your environment, your mind will also be taking in things from external sources and appearances, and then that is also being impressed on. They call it your subconscious mind, and your habits, your habitual ways of thinking, and that in turn becomes also a part of your character, and invariably you would be being controlled by your environment. It's amazing how all that works. But okay, that those in the minds who live in the lower atmosphere of thought cannot see clearly where they are going is quite natural. Like I was saying, meditation, if you could control your thoughts and what your mind is doing, you can see everything more clearly and where you need to go and what you need to do. Don't take my word for it. Put it into practice. Because in the first place, these lower atmospheres of life are usually dense, being supercharged with the confusion thought of the world. And in the second place, those who live in these lower grades do not employ the higher and finer rays of mental light. We all know that the lower vibrations of physical light cannot pass through objects that are opaque, and we have also learned that the lower rays of mental light cannot pass through conditions and circumstances that are confused with discord and materiality. But it has been demonstrated that the higher rays of physical light can pass through almost any physical object. In like manner, the higher rays of intelligence or mental light can see through almost anything in the mental world. And, therefore, the one who employs these higher rays of his mind will have the power to see through all things in his life. However, when we speak of higher grades of intelligence as being the power that can see through things, we must not infer that such intelligence is too high to be gained by the average individual. For the fact is that we all have this higher intelligence, or finer rays of mental light active within us at all times. The secret is simply to learn how to apply these finer rays of mental light. Thus we shall be able to exercise the power to see through things. Meditation. The difference between the lower and the higher rays of light is found almost wholly in the attitude of mind. That is, it is materiality on one hand and spirituality on the other, the two halves of the complete whole which constitute what we call life. Okay? Materiality on one hand, spirituality on the other. By materiality, we mean the attitude of mind that looks down, an attitude that is observed wholly in things, that dwells on the surface, and that lives exclusively for the body, not being consciously interested in anything but the body. By spirituality, we mean that attitude of the mind that gives an upward look to every thought, every desire, every motive, every feeling, and every action of the entire being of man. In this upward look, it is not an attitude that looks for the invisible, nor an attitude that dreams of the glories of another sphere of existence. It is an attitude that simply looks for the greater possibilities that exist everywhere now, and for the beauty and the truth that crowns the whole world. The mind that is material or that lives exclusively in the world of things is more or less in the clouds of confusion. Therefore, employs the lesser rays of intelligence, those rays that do not have the power to see through things. Such a mind, therefore, can never be in a cleared-up mental atmosphere. And at times, those minds that have been conscious of higher grades of mentality and that have seen the superiority and the brilliancy of this higher intelligence within them may fall down temporarily into materiality, and for the time being they may lose sight completely of the higher consciousness of truth which they previously gained. Thus they frequently forget every principle in higher existence that was once so vivid, and while in this state of depression, they generally conclude that all is sin, sorrow, and human weakness, after all. That is, it seems to such a mind, because at such times it is only the discord of the world and the results of mistakes that are discerned. While in this submerged state, the mind cannot see the splendors that are immediately beyond, and he cannot feel the supreme joy that higher realms have in store. Accordingly, he comes to the conclusion that all is trouble and pain. He feels nothing else, knows nothing else, and has temporarily forgotten the light and the joy that he knew well in higher realms of consciousness. The wise man who wrote the Proverbs was in this lower mentality when he declared that all is vanity and vexation of spirit. And he spoke the truth about that lower world, that is, the material state that is composed wholly of the mistakes of man. That material state, however, is not the only world there is. There are other and finer worlds in the mind of man, worlds where vanity does not exist and where nothing vexes the spirit. And it is this higher and finer worlds of the mind that we must train ourselves to love, if we wish to see through things and thus learn to understand things as they really are. Then we shall find that the wrong is insignificant compared with the immensity of the right and the good. When we look at things from the worldly or materialistic point of view, things do not appear very well, nor are things always very well in that particular state. They are frequently wrong and misdirected. But when we learn to see through things and see all things as they are, we change our minds. Then we discover other worlds and higher stories to the mansion in which we live. The cellar is usually dark and damp, but how much better we find it further up. And yet when the average person is in the cellar of his mind, he imagines that it is the only place there is, and that there is neither light, comfort, nor joy in the world. But why should we enter into the cellar of the mind, and why should we permit a dark, damp cellar to exist in our minds at all? There is no need of it in the human life, for it is simply the sum total of our mistakes, and does not represent the real mansion of existence in any sense of the term. Now it's funny because he talks in this book, he says that in consciousness there are many mansions. There are many different states of consciousness that you could be in. When he talks about the cellar, you go for the time being of being, out and open and, absorbent of the love around you, to being put in a bad mood and then not wanting to have anything to do with anybody or anyone in the world. That those are the different kinds of mansions the doors that he is talking about within your own consciousness. And everybody has that. And I want to read to you about a quote, or a Bible saying, a verse from the Bible. It says, "In my Father's house there are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you." And that is from John 14:2. Because in the Father's house there are many mansions. And you are an embodiment of the universal spirit, the energy. And your body is your temple, the house that you as spirit lives. When you have a mind, because the mind is the connecting link between the spiritual body and this material body, because the mind partakes in both spiritual and material qualities. That is why it is the median between the two. That is why you can move from the lower state of consciousness and act in, the lesser way of acting, and you could also move up into the higher states of consciousness, where the wise men of the ages have always lived and had discovered and shared it within, the wisdom, and also in books. Reading is by far one of the most important things, if not the most important thing you could do for yourself. Okay? Excuse me, sorry. The whole of the being of man should be illumined The whole of the being of man should be illumined, and every atom should be filled with harmony, comfort, joy, and life. When the mind that had fallen down comes up again, it realizes how absurd it was to forget all the truth and all the joy of real existence simply because there were a few clouds for a little time. However, after a few such experiences, the mind learns to interpret the experience of the seller and does not consider it real anymore, but on the contrary, makes haste to prevent that experience as well as all other descending attitudes in the future. Now, I want to give to you an important affirmation, because we're all creatures of habit, and if you're in that habit of moving into that negative state, it's going to be very, very easy for you to stay there, and you have to push your way out of it. You have to push your way into the light, so to speak. And here's an affirmation that works really well. Repeat it day in and day out. It is, I can be what I will to be. I could think what I want to think. I could do what I will to do. I could be what I will to be, because that's what life is. Life is about creating yourself, building your own character, expansion of the consciousness, growing as a consciousness, because all consciousness is a self-aware unit of energy, and everything is energy, and everything in existence is an embodiment of this one universal energy. We are it in a dynamic state, and that is what we're here to do. We're here to grow and to learn, because it is through us that the universe learns about itself. Okay, so let's continue. Yeah, that's pretty cool. However, after a few such experiences, the mind learns to interpret the experience of the seller and does not consider it real anymore, but on the contrary, makes haste to prevent that experience as well as all other descending attitudes in the future. The mind that has never experienced the higher phases of consciousness does not know how to proceed to prevent the more adverse experiences of ordinary existence, and therefore will remain among the dense fogs of confusion more or less until taught how to rise into the finer grades of mental light. That is what I am here to do, to help shine light upon for all of you guys. And like I said, for those of you who are really looking for this information, that is what I am here doing this for. Okay. To proceed in rising above these undesirable conditions, the first step to take is to make harmony, happiness, and brightness of spirit the great objects in view. Even when we simply think that these states, we elevate the mind in the mental. Let me read that again. Even when we simply think of these states, we elevate the mind in a measure, and whenever the mind is elevated to some extent, we find that finer light comes into our world of intelligence. That is, the higher rays of mentality begin to express themselves, and many things begin to clear up. It's very interesting that he says that too, because if you weren't with me in mental chemistry, I have the full series of the book on my channel. Feel free to check it out. But it's also written by Charles F. Hannell, the guy who wrote the Master Key System. And he goes into saying how the brain is the best instrument for man. The brain is part of the physical body. It is your instrument. It is your greatest tool. And it takes form and shape according to your mental processes, your thoughts, your mind. And infinite intelligence, we're all surrounded by an intelligence, a mind. This energy that all things proceeded from is an intelligent energy, and has within it all the answers, all the wisdom, all power, all everything, literally everything. And if we could only register our mind, our tool, to think along those certain lines, then it'll be easier for us to take in those thoughts, to absorb the information that is already floating out around us. It's already there next to us, in front of us. All we need to do is to register ourselves and become receptive of it. But first we must ask and believe that we are receiving, and it will come to us in many, many ways. It'll either be given to us through intuition. It'll either drop a book. The universe will drop a book in front of us for us to read that we need. It'll either make you run into a video like this to help you understand it in any way that is best for you to understand it. And the universe knows. God knows. Okay? So with that being said, let's continue. In this connection, it is well to remember that our brightest ideas come while we are on the mountaintop of intellectual activity, and also that we can find the correct answer to almost any problem that may appear in personal life if we only go up in mind as high as we possibly can reach at the time. While the mind is up in those finer grades of intellect, the most abstract principles are comprehended with almost no mental effort, and the path to greater things becomes as clear as the midday sun. It is therefore a great and valuable accomplishment to be able to go up in the mind as high as one may wish, for to bring superior intelligence into constant use is to live in the world of absolute light itself. The reason being that this intelligence actually does possess X-ray power of penetration in the mental world. There is nothing that this ray cannot see through, and there is nothing that is hidden that cannot be revealed into the light. Again, we must remember, however, I got something in my room I need to catch. Okay. It kind of scared me right now. I seen it with my peripheral. Yeah, you could probably guess what it is. We, when it gets cold outside, they look for a place to live, and they try to go, they go somewhere where it's warm. And, yeah. Let's continue, shall we? Okay, there is nothing that this ray cannot see through, and there is nothing, I'm sorry, that just completely, I just gotta get back into my focus. Okay, this is what we're doing, Corey. Stay focused with what's happening now. There is nothing that this ray cannot see through, and there nothing is hidden, and it cannot reveal the light. Again, we must remember, however, that it is not necessary to attain an enormous amount of wisdom and knowledge in order to gain the power to see through things in this way, because every stage of development that exists has the power to see through everything that may appear in that particular stage. Every individual in his present state has the power to see through everything in that state, that is, a finer grade of a mental light that belongs to that particular state, and it has the X-ray power of penetration in its own experience, its own sphere, I guess that could be, in a way, kind of the same thing. X-ray power of penetration in its own sphere. Accordingly, he can learn to see through everything where he is without becoming a mental giant, or without acquiring wisdom which belongs exclusively to higher states of mental attainment. The idea is to live in the upper story of your mental world, whatever that world may be now, because by entering the upper story of your mental world, you enter that state of your present intelligence that can see through everything that pertains to your present world. In order to enter the upper story of the mind, the whole of life should be concentrated, so to speak, upon the most superior states of existence that we can conceive of. This will cause the mind to become ascending in its attitude, and the power of the ascending mind is immense. Such a mind will steadily grow upward and onward towards higher and finer grades of intellect, wisdom, and mental light, and gradually this power to see through things will be gained. In addition, everything will be turned to greater use and better use, and thus be made more conducive to the life of beauty, richness, and joy. However, when we proceed to consecrate a life to the superior in this manner, we do not leave the world of things. We simply turn the life of the power of all things towards the higher, and the larger and the better. We whereby cause the world of things to move steadily towards superior states of life and action. As we enter more and more into this upper realm of thought, life, and understanding, We should employ this penetrating power of finer intelligence in connection with every move we make, for it is the constant use of the true use of the power. For it is the constant use and the true use of the power that develops that power. Therefore, we should do nothing without first turning on the X-ray of the mind. In other words, we should view every circumstance from the standpoint of a clear perception before any decision is made, and we should seek to secure the very highest viewpoint under every circumstance. This will not only give the mind a better understanding of how to proceed, but the faculty of finer discernment will be developed constantly, and our growth in wisdom and intellectual brilliancy will in time become remarkable. In this connection, we should remember that nearly all the missteps that are taken in the average life that are the results of the mind's failure to penetrate the surface of things and conditions so as to see the real nature of the factors at work. But the lower mental rays, that is, that phase of intelligence that we all use while in the lower story of the mind, do not possess. That will be the end of chapter 17, the X-ray power of the mind. And if you made it to the end of this video, I want to thank you for taking the time to go over all this with me. What just happened right now, well, I could say it's a little embarrassing, but it is what it is. You know, you could have, the best house in the world, and they'll still find their way to come in, because it is winter right now, and it is cold. And yeah, it kind of did take my focus off of what we were going over at the end, because I was just sort of, I was kind of thinking about that, but it is what it is, and I'm not gonna try to hide it. It was a mouse, and we all have them at times. So, with that being said, I want to thank you guys for making it through this with me, and for taking the initiative of learning this material with me, because I know what it feels like to be in that cloud, to fight for the light, to learn this information, to understand this information. I understand what it's like to struggle. We don't have the best things. The majority of the people don't have the best things, but we all have what is necessary for our well-being and living. And that is all that we need, but we all do deserve more, and we all deserve as much as we need to enjoy, because this life is ours for the taking. And some people want to be millionaires, some people don't. Me personally, I just want to help people. Like I had said, I know what it's like to not know this stuff, and now that I've been reading this for the last, I've been reading all this stuff for a while. I have my own library of books. That is my TV, and I can't even begin to tell you how much I love to read. I love learning new things. I love information. I love knowledge that turns into wisdom, once you put it into practice, because there's a difference between knowing something and applying that something that you know. Because only until you apply it and really learn how to use it properly, that becomes wisdom, and that constitutes wisdom. Knowing what to do in a situation, knowing how to handle a situation, and knowing how to react to a situation. And with that being said, you guys, I'm no better than you, I'm no different than you. I just have something that the majority of people don't know, and which is why I am here to share it. Remember this book, How the Mind Works by Christian D. Larson. This book was written back in 1912. Most people don't read nowadays, and it's sad. It sucks, because reading is by far the best thing you can do. So, that being said, you guys, I got my little project I need to put together really quick, because he was a baby one, and we got a few things to set up. And that being said, you guys, for those of you who, it is sad, you wouldn't want to take the guy out, You know, I wouldn't want to take the guy out. We got our own animals, we got our own pets, you know, we have our own things, but we also have our own things that we struggle to have ourselves. You know, they eat your food, they get into things that that you don't want them to get into. You know, you're working every single day so you could be able to have those things, and if they come in and then they take it, you know, it sucks. It's not good. The struggle is real, everyone. And for those kids that are watching, your parents are going to work every single day to make sure you have that food. You know, to make sure you have all the dishes, to make sure you have a roof over your head. You know, it's not as easy as it looks. It's not as easy as you think. You know, you're here on YouTube right now. You know, I'm not saying you're wasting your time because we're going over something very important, but if you're doing other things, you know, in a way you're not really doing anything that will help you grow. You know, if you're just watching videos that, you know, that are funny, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. You know, I like to watch humorous things too. You know, there's a time and place for anything, but there's also that time where, yeah, set aside 10 minutes for something to laugh at, then set aside half hour for something to learn, and then set aside a half hour to, you know, work on your body. You know, set aside a half hour to write in your journal. You know, do something little bits with your time. You know, separate the time throughout your day. Do something a little bit that will help you grow in every direction possible. You know, like I said, it's always good to just take a break in a while and relax from everything, but it's never too good to be doing that. It's never good for that to be what you're doing all the time. We're all here to grow, and we're all here to be in this life to grow. And that being said, thank you for watching this video. We're gonna be going over chapter 18 soon, which is when mind is broad and deep. That being said, everyone, thank you for understanding. Thank you for watching this video with me. I'm here being real 100% about everything. We're all in the same life, we're all in the same place, and yeah, I'll see you on the other side of the galaxy.